Do you think this puts the issue to rest in New Orleans? Do you think that Saints fans seeing this?
I mean, and it was important for me on the committee. It was important to not come in with a bias relative to a call that just took place in our game, but really being on that committee, I think there's more of a responsibility overall to the other 31 teams, in that responsibility of what's best for our game. And so it wasn't about specifically the New Orleans play, although, look, that play probably had a lot to do with why we were discussing replay. And you know, if you looked at it, probably over a period of time was due to happen or could happen again. And so it wasn't about that specific play. It was really what's the best way that we can help the officials and bat at a little higher percentage. It's not going to be perfect going forward, and I think that's what we did.
Well, I mean, in Peter King's column on Monday, he quoted something that Jason Garrett, I think, said to the entire ownership group about how we had great games from the AFC and NFC Championship weekend, and all everyone was talking about is officiating. And as somebody whose job it is to talk football all the time on the NFL Network, I'm like, tell me about it, you know? I mean, so do you think that rectifies everything? The fact that this is now
I think
changed.
It's a start, and I think to Jason's point, he was fantastic on Tuesday speaking. Man, we had two great championship games. You know, the NFC and the AFC championship game, both were overtime games. I think, you know, what's interesting is you talk about the perfect time window. You know, call it 3 hours. One of the things, you know, each time you go to one of these meetings, you learn a little bit more. And I think that although there's a certain goal time-wise for these games, the one common theme is if it's an exciting game, no one's looking down saying it's 3 minutes and 3 hours and 12 minutes long. It's too long. I think eliminating the dead time is something our league's done a great job with. And I do think that, look, anytime you come off of two great games like that, you want more of the topic to be about the last minute drive that Tom Brady had in New England in overtime, or the back and forth play from the Rams and the Saints, how it started off and the Rams then closed the gap and ended up winning in the final play of the game. So, you know, you're trying to avoid maybe that egregious mistake, and yet I think that there's no perfect system, but I think going forward, it's being able to put a challenge on the field if you feel like a true error has been made. You know, in our game versus Pittsburgh a few weeks prior, there was an interference called against Kamara, and it was clearly a mistake. And a mistake like that would be able to correct it. And so you're still going to come away from games. You're not going to have that perfect game. But we do know one thing, and you know, all the studies, the analysts would tell us that DPI and OPI is the one foul that can impact a game a lot more than, call it, the rest of the fouls that can take place in a game. And so, you know, we're going to have to work our way through some bumps, I'm sure, and yet I think we can do that, and I think we've seen the CFL do that.
A couple more on this subject before we move on. Coach Sean Payton here. So when was the last time that you had a day where this wasn't brought up to you, this subject?
That's a good question. You know, we travel in the off season some, and now one of the great things is, you know, our ability to use Uber or, you know, a car service different. You know, all of us now can, you know, go to our phone and get a ride here and there. And I wish I would have just brought a camera with me and recorded every Uber discussion I've had in the last 2.5 months when the driver turns around. And then, you know, the one thing you realize is we have a ton of NFL fans out there. And so, you know, at times I wanted to wear a hat and say, look, I'm aware of it. I agree with you. It would have saved a lot of discussion, but the fans are passionate, and even fans that clearly aren't Saints fans or Ram fans, they're just NFL fans. You know, I had a guy from Greece in Indianapolis who took me probably on a 6-block Uber ride and had strong opinions as to how this all happened, and so everyone's opinion on it varies some, and yet it's exciting that they're fans of our game.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.